So welcome again to today's Fireside Chat. Meet the WMS President, Dr. Linda Keys. I would now like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Emily Segalin. Emily is a board-certified emergency physician with the Northern Nevada Emergency Physicians in Reno, Nevada. After completing residency in emergency medicine at the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania, she pursued a fellowship in wilderness medicine and emergency medical services at the University of Utah, where she also completed her MPH. She completed her FOM and DIM through the WMS. She is a medical advisor for SWS Mountain Guides in Mount Shasta, California. Emily, please take it away.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm super excited to have people really coming from everywhere. It's crazy that a few people are awake at 2 and 4 in the morning. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, please feel free to introduce yourself on the chat. We'll kind of keep an eye on that as we go. And just so we can start to kind of break the ice a little bit, we're going to play a little game. So Linda, we're here really to meet Linda Keys. She is our new president of the Wilderness Medical Society. And we thought it would be fun to do a little kind of icebreaker first, and kind of get to know Linda, but also get to know everyone who's here. So Kelly, I don't know if you want to start our little poll. So we'll start here. So please take a few seconds to answer what you all enjoy. So is your preferred method of snow travel skiing, snowboarding, snowshoeing? And we're gonna answer these polls, and then we're gonna ask our president here what she thinks and kind of chat a little bit about it. What type of recreation do you like to do in the ski or the snow world? I shouldn't say ski world, in the snow world. Do you like to be inbounds? Do you like to tour? In terms of riding, are you a mountain biker? Do you like gravel riding? It's the new fancy thing, road riding. For those of you that run or don't run, do you prefer to run on the trail, on the road, or are you just not a runner and you're only going to run if you're being chased by something? When you're cooking and camping, are you guys jet boil people or Coleman people? What type of water sterilization do you prefer? We'll start with all of our wilderness this or that questions, and then we'll move on to some more personal ones in a little bit. I'll give you all a second to do that. And then let's see, we have 24 participants. We'll wait until a couple more people vote if you want to vote. And ultralight. And again, these aren't extensive answers. Sorry that we could get really technical if we wanted to.
Right, which shows 71% have voted. So
okay. So let's go. Well, do you want to close it? Give everyone about 10 more seconds, and then we'll close it up and move on.
Okay, looks like the votes have slowed, so I will share our results here.
All right, so y'all can see. Can everyone see the results of the polls? Maybe skiing. So we're kind of split. Skiing and snowshoeing. No real snowboarders out there. Linda, what's your preferred method of snow travel?
Definitely skiing. Emily was calling it slow shoeing, and every time I go out on my snowshoes on the downhill, I'm like, why didn't I bring skis? And I have tried snowboarding once. That was enough.
All right.
But I was disappointed that you didn't ask Telly versus AT.
Oh, yes. Okay, so if we did ask Telly versus AT, what would be your answer?
Yeah, still Tellying.
Awesome.
long as I
And then, all right, what type of skiing do you like to do? Inbounds or touring?
touring.
Fair.
So I'll ride a lift if it's a good powder day.
All right, what kind of cycler are you? Or are you a cycler?
Yeah, if I have to cycle, it's got to be on a mountain bike. Although
All right.
yesterday Emily was selling gravel riding pretty hard, so I'll have to try it.
It's the new fad. All right, well, I know that you are in fact a runner at heart. So what kind of runner are you?
Yeah, and I'm a trail runner before that was a thing. And pleased to see that we've got a lot of other runners out there.
Awesome. And what about cooking?
Yeah, so my backpacking stove is neither of these. But if I get a new stove, it'll be a Jetboil.
Fair.
And if any of you came to my talk on carbon monoxide at the winter meeting 6 months ago, you'll know that inside a tent, the Colemans are the worst in terms of carbon monoxide production. So just keep that in mind.
All right. What about water sterilization?
Yeah, and I'm SteriPen all the way.
All right. All right. Let's move on to the next one. And while we're voting, I'm just gonna take a step back, and just in case you haven't been on the website and don't know anything about Linda, let me read you her bio. So Dr. Key, and go ahead, Kelly, you can throw up the next poll if you'd like. So Dr. Keys is the president of the WMS. She is an associate clinical professor and research advisor to the wilderness section at the University of Colorado. She was an associate editor of the Wilderness and Environmental Medicine and on the board of the Wilderness and Environmental Medicine Journal for 15 years. She volunteered at the Himalayan Rescue Association aid post in Fairchild, Nepal, and was a team leader for the NYC Global Medics Disaster Relief in Dominica and Nepal. She served as a member and later physician advisor to the Rocky Mountain Rescue Corps in Boulder, and her research interests include medical conditions at high altitude and acute mountain sickness. And she practices emergency medicine in Colorado and is an avid skier and climber, as we have already established. All right.
Okay,
So
everyone's getting the game now. We've got to think about the same amount of responses in half the time, which is great.
excellent.
6% have voted.
Perfect. Well, let's keep rolling. We're going to make it short then, and let's go through this. All right, Linda.
Oh,
When you're sleeping outside, what do you prefer, tent or bivy sack?
so fun to see your guys' response.
Damn it.
I'm
That's a good
soft.
point.
Yeah, I'm soft. I'll take the tent.
Fair. I think I do
But I've bivvied under duress.
too. What type of sleeping bag do you have?
Down all the way. Also,
Okay.
because I'm soft and I go for the lightest weight possible.
What are your preferred base layers?
Wool, gotta be wool. I'm an ER doctor, so I sweat. I have stinky sweat, and only wool can help with that.
What about, are you a Patagonia or an Arc'teryx person?
I actually am the poster girl for Patagonia.
And what are your favorite trail snacks? Trail mix, bars, chews, gels like goo, and those types of things?
I carry a bar so that if I'm stuck and I need emergency food in the wilderness, I can throw it at a small rodent and then cook that over a spit instead of eating a bar. Give me trail mix, please.
All right. Well, cool. It's awesome. I hope you guys are also looking at these polls just to kind of learn who else is on our call, and it's nice for us just to kind of see and connect with some members as well and kind of see what your all preferences are. I thought it was pretty interesting that we're kind of split almost half with the down and synthetic sleeping bags. And there are more polypro people out there than wool. And Patagonia is taking a very big lead over Arc'teryx. And maybe that's because of price. I mean, you can definitely find some like cheaper Patagonia stuff out there, but finding Arc'teryx stuff on sale is like really challenging, and paying full prices. You need it. I do need to hit the Arc'teryx outlet. That place is amazing.
Arc'teryx outlet.
It is in Vancouver. I remember, right? Is that Jory or Chicago and Chicago? Sweet. And New York. Oh my goodness. The only one I've been to is the one on the way north from Seattle to Vancouver. And that place is fantastic. And that was many years ago when the WMS had the World Congress up in Whistler. So cool. All right. So I have a couple questions to ask an outdoor research for the win, though, Jory says. Awesome. So I have some questions that I'm going to start with by asking Linda, and just so everyone can kind of get an idea of who she is and why she is now our president. To try to, what we'd like to do kind of in a little bit once we go through some of these is really open it up to the members. And so if you guys have some questions or think about some questions that you want to ask, as we go through, and we'll open it up after we go through some of these basic questions to you guys to ask questions. So Linda, tell us about yourself. Where do you live? What do you do? We know you're an emergency doctor in Colorado, but that's about it. What was your training, and who's in your family?
Yeah, so I work for a private hospital called Boulder Community, but I am a clinical faculty at the University of Colorado. And I live in Boulder. I went to medical school at Yale. I did residency at Highland in Oakland in emergency medicine. It took me 6 years to graduate from medical school because I spent 2 years doing lab research on pregnancy at high altitude with a PhD researcher at University of Colorado in Denver. And then after I finished my emergency medicine residency, I went back and did a year research fellowship in that same lab. It's called the Cardiovascular Pulmonary Lab. And it's a consortium of investigators who look at several aspects of high altitude physiology, particularly respiratory and pregnancy. And I was faculty.
That's where
Go ahead.
That's where the pregnancy, for a while, you were like a pregnancy expert in the wilderness medicine. That's where it came from.
Yeah, and there are very few people who are in researching this topic. So I was really lucky to get to work with Lorna Moore for that. And I stayed full-time academics till I had my first daughter. So I have 2 daughters now. They're both teenagers. They're big. But when my first daughter was small, my mom also got cancer, and so I decided to leave academics and be able to manage my schedule a little bit more the way I wanted to in the private world. But I did work for 2 years for Indian Health Service in Tuba City, Arizona, which is on the border of, well, it's in the Navajo Nation, but also on the border of the Hopi Nation, where I got to see lots of cool wilderness-related things like black widow spider bites and scorpion stings and heat exhaustion. It was a really fun place to work. I'm married to a software engineer who doesn't know anything about medicine, but also loves being outside, loves skiing like I do. So that's
all right.
That's that.
What are your hobbies?
Well, in the winter, I'll pretty much be on skis of some kind, either touring or some, I'll cross-country ski around the lake in my neighborhood if there's enough snow. I have a pass, so I definitely do resort ski. And then actually all year round, I trail run, which basically keeps me sane and in shape. And then I don't know if it's a hobby or just like a ridiculous obsession, but I also write fiction. So that takes up some more time than I don't have enough time, as much time as I'd like for it, but it is one of the things I love to do.
Very cool. What is your most memorable or favorite trip?
This is a tough question. I've been really fortunate to do a lot of traveling and work in some really cool places around the world. But I think I have to say, in 1992, I got to go to Tibet as part of that pregnancy and high altitude project I was working on. And when I arrived in Lhasa, I was one of like a dozen Westerners in the city. So it was a pretty extraordinary time to be there. And I was in Tibet for about 4 months. My husband pretended he was part of the research team so we could get him a visa. And he came over, and we did a trek from Lhasa into a closed area, an area of Tibet that was closed to Westerners. So we kind of had to sneak in over this mountain pass. It was an 18,000 foot pass that we didn't realize until we were on the top of it. And my husband was really, really sick with altitude sickness, which he was attributing it to some bad noodles we had eaten the day before. But we got over the other side of the pass, and he practically just passed out. And I was really worried, and I was trying to find some herders to like carry him down. And he woke up in the middle of the night. He drank a liter of Gatorade. He's like, "I feel great. Will you marry me?" And so we got engaged at like 17,000 feet in Tibet. And then he went back to sleep and like was still super sick the next day. And he was able to walk out, but I found this guy to put up his pack on a yak. And we spent 2 nights at a monastery where like the monks brought him in and laid him on the altar. and we're kind of like, we had sort of like disrupted meditation, and he was really uncomfortable, but he was like too like weak to get up and get out of there. And I didn't really know how to handle the situation. And, but then I had exchanged English lessons for Tibetan lessons at the beginning of the time I was there. So I had sort of rudimentary communication skills, and I had the most incredible conversation with these monks that night, where we were drawing pictures of like Chinese and war and talking about these sort of abstract ideas of like peace and compassion with just, Pictionary hand symbols and kindergarten vocabulary. It was amazing. And Chris got better, and we spent 2 weeks doing this trek through this whole region, which was sort of the heart of religious education pre-Chinese Tibet. And so our goals were like to go from monastery to monastery. There's lots of stories. We got briefly arrested, and were like sort of held in this weird motel prison for 24 hours. And it was an amazing trip.
So I have to ask, because one of our members, Mohammed, asked that this is the most badass proposal ever, but did you confirm with him that he was really serious after he regained consciousness?
Right. I had to tell him he couldn't take it back.
How does he feel about that? 27 years.
25 years married now. So it worked out okay. But back, this is pre-internet era. So we sent our parents telegrams announcing our engagement. So.
Prison story next, please. The next comment.
But I'll buy you a beer at our next in-person meeting and tell you that one.
There's a good one. All right. What are your favorite things right now in this lovely, alternate world that we live in?
Well, like everybody else, I had to take up a new sport. So I bought the last two stand-up paddleboards I could find in the world, and began stand-up paddleboarding about a month ago. And it's turned out to be great. There's a reservoir up above Boulder. And like last weekend when it was thick with smoke down here, it was hazy there, but breathable. And so that's been a really nice thing that I've been enjoying since the pandemic.
Awesome.
Other new favorite things, pandemic stuff. I'm loving that my garden has actually produced some vegetables. So every time I make a cucumber tomato salad with, from my garden, I feel super proud of myself. And
Nice.
we had a big snowstorm last week, and so I harvested all the basil and made 6 pint containers full of pesto. So that's been another cool treat.
That's impressive. Well, Kelly, one of our other members, said that she just went stand-up paddleboarding yesterday in the Gulf of Mexico as a study break. So that's awesome.
That definitely beats Gross Reservoir. You win. But I'd be happy to bring my paddleboard down and join you sometime. Awesome. That there was no hurricane happening, or like the water must be kind of rough, right?
It was very rough. It was very turned up, but no, it had finally stopped raining after Sally came through for a while, so had to get out there.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Who are the people that you look up to, Linda?
Well, one of my big heroes is Arlene Bloom. I don't know if you guys know who she is, but she led the first all-women Himalayan expedition back in the 70s, and then wrote a book called Annapurna, A Woman's Place is on Top. And she did that because she was a super badass climber, alpinist, and climbed with men all over the US and Canada. But then when these men were going to the Himalayas, they were like, oh, we can't take women to the Himalayas on expeditions. And she was like, what? So she said, screw you, I'll just take a bunch of women. And Nancy says she read the book twice. If you have not read Annapurna, A Woman's Place, you have to read it. It's so great. So I love her because she's a beautiful writer, and she basically set her sights on something, went out and did it. She's a big outdoor advocate. So she's one of my big heroes. I really I admire this sort of new generation of outdoor athletes who are also advocates, people like Claire Gallagher, who spoke at the winter conference, and Caroline Gelch, who's an amazing skier and outdoor advocate. And there's a woman named Rue Mapp who started an organization called Afro Outdoors. And she's a Black woman who basically, she loves doing stuff outside. And she's like, there are not enough people like me here. And now, I think the organization was started 10 or 12 years ago. And now it's, 50,000 people, chapters in every state. And so again, as someone who basically took her passion for the outdoors and turned it into advocacy and action. And I really admire that.
Awesome. Who are your mentors?
Well, I mentioned I did research on pregnancy at high altitude, and the woman I worked with is Dr. Lorna Moore, and she's a PhD anthropologist, and she has had a huge influence on my life in many ways. She taught me how to do research. She taught me how to write a paper. I was really fortunate to be able to work in that lab environment where every week one investigator would do a mini presentation on their work and other people would critique it. So we got lots of back and forth. There was lots of training on like how to write a paper. And then the other thing that I really admired about her is she did not let having children stop her from doing cool things. So she took her kids, her she took her son to Peru when he was like 2, and she just carried him around in a backpack while she was doing field research, having these Quechuan women do these respiratory tests in small villages in the high altitude Andes of Peru. It's really cool. And so when I had kids, I was like, okay, I'm going to be like that. And in fact, it's been great. I have taken both of my daughters have gone to Nepal with me now. And I hope that I'm setting an example for other people to take their kids on their adventures. And
when we can adventure again. Yes.
What'd you say?
When we can adventure again.
Exactly. Yes, it will come.
Yes.
And then my other big mentor is Peter Hackett, who I'm sure many of you know who he is and has heard of, but we've done several research projects together. He's been a big advocate of mine. He was the first one who got me on the Wilderness and Environmental Medicine Board, and has really encouraged me to pursue these, the current blood pressure projects that I'm working on. Even though he's not actually a part of it, he's been kind of helped behind the scenes. And so, and he's also been a great example for how to continue to do research and contribute to high altitude medicine and wilderness medicine without being a full-time academic. So I owe a lot to him for that.
I'm sure he would love to hear that.
Yes.
What do you do to relieve stress?
I yell at my kids. I do, but I don't realize that that's why I'm doing it. So again, I have to run several times a week or I just go crazy. And my family will be like, have you exercised today, Mom? I do a little bit of yoga. I'm kind of a wannabe meditator. Sometimes I'll get like a 3 or 4 day streak. And I also just, sometimes it's just getting out and taking this little like mile loop around a lake near my house is enough for me to reset. But just generally being outdoors is how I find calm.
I think a lot of us would probably agree with that. So let's kind of move a little bit. How did you get involved with the Wilderness Medical Society, and when was that?
Yeah, so when I was a second-year med student, a friend of mine and I saw a flyer for the first World Congress on Wilderness Medicine in Whistler. And so we were going to be in Oregon, which turns out to be not that close to Whistler. But at the time, we were on the East Coast, so it seemed like not that far. And we managed to convince our dean to pay our way to go to the conference. And that was when I first met Peter. And I heard Ken Zaffron, who I think is here. Hi, Ken. Talk about the Himalaya Rescue Association aid post in Fairchain. I was like, I want to do that. And at the time, I was really not sure what I was doing in medicine. I was kind of thinking I might go into OB. And I met a bunch of emergency physicians at that conference. And at my medical school, there was no emergency medicine program at the time. This is how long ago that was. And so then that got me interested in emergency medicine. I wrote a ton of letters. That's how I found that research job with Lorna, was because actually I wanted to go to Denali and work with Peter. And he was like, well, we need a cook. And I was like, no, I want to do research. So I ended up, because of that conference, basically pursuing that whole research, 2 years of lab research, which was, phenomenal. And that's how I got to Tibet. And it really changed my life. And then, so then I began speaking about pregnancy at WMS conferences. I got involved with a journal. I was doing peer review. I got on the editorial board. Ultimately, I was associate editor for just over 6 years. And then I got asked to be the research chair. So I ran the research committee for several years. And I applied to be on the board a few times during this. and did not get on. But then finally, I think it was either my second or my third time I applied to get on the board. I got on the board and got asked to be secretary, and here I am.
So you kind of mentioned it, but what roles have you had within the WMS?
Yeah, so I've been a member since I was a medical student, pretty much since the old-fashioned green journal, and then so I've worked for the journal. I've been on the board. Now this will be my sixth year on the board. I think I can't quite remember exactly how long it works out, but it's been a long time.
Yeah. What made you want to be president of the WMS?
I mean, the reason I applied to be on the board in the first place was because I really love the people in the organization, and I really love high altitude medicine and the mountains. But I felt like the organization as a whole was not, it wasn't always as welcoming as I'd hoped it would be, and it felt pretty male dominated. And I complain about this a fair amount, and I realized I could either, quit or shut up, or I could try to make change. And so I decided it was better to try and make change. And so that's why I'm here. I want to make it a welcoming, inclusive society where everybody has opportunities, where women and men are respected equally, and where it doesn't feel like just a clique of a few elite people kind of running everything.
Perfect. That kind of segues, and you kind of answered it, but was going to next ask what your vision was for the next year as the president for the WMS.
Yeah, so I think I did just answer it. I want the WMS to feel like a place where everybody belongs, whether you're an anesthesiologist or a nurse or a PA or an EMT, or a ski patroller. Like, we have a place for all of you, and I don't really care. I would love to see more people of color. One of my things I'm really proud of is that we've started this Women in Wilderness Medicine Committee, where we're doing some women's leadership training. So hopefully it will not be another 16 years before there's another woman president. I've got a project going on with the journal right now where we're identifying gender split in authors, first authors, senior authors, and also reviewers, to figure out how we can get more women published, more women on the editorial board.
We do have one person says you're rocking it, lady. So I would echo that. Awesome. Well, those are the some of the questions that I already had. Let's take a little bit of a change, and we're going to go back to a more personal this or that survey question or poll, whatever we did in the beginning. We have some other kind of more fun questions, and we'll do the same thing that we did before. So for all you guys out there, country or rap?
Oh, sorry. I think I'm going to just screw that up. There. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Kelly fixed it. All right. Here's another poll for everybody out there. We'll do this, and then we'll move on to open it up to questions from you guys. Can you vote on neither of the music choices? Well, that's why we put those two up, actually. There is a reason for that. But yes.
The lesser of two evils.
That was actually purposeful. Awesome. Well, I think we're at 82%. So we'll turn it over to so Linda, you get to answer that question. Country or rap? We had a very long discussion about this the other day because we also had the issue of like, we like some parts of country and some parts of rap, but not everything as a whole.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Linda.
The Judds is who I was trying to think of yesterday, who I don't, you guys, many people on this call probably weren't even born when they were playing, but I I guess if I was going to listen to country, I do have a little weakness for sort of like live bluegrass, if that can fall into the country category. And I also confess that I like old classic rap, like, Run DMC and Public Enemy. And I really do not like modern misogynistic rap, although I know there are rappers out there who are not like that.
And here's a very important determinant. What about when country musicians decide to rap?
Oh, right. Yeah. If I hear that Ride My Horse song one more time, I'll shoot myself.
There you go.
But I read the paper yesterday. They're making it into a children's book, so there you go.
Oh gosh. Okay, what about vacation? What are your favorite vacations? Mountains or beach?
I don't even think you guys need, like, I'm sure you don't need to hear me answer that. Clearly it's mountains.
Clearly, and I think you're with the majority of people on the call also agree. All right, what about your vehicle? Would you rather have a sports car or an SUV?
But what about like riding from Whistler to Vancouver in a convertible with the top down with, a gorgeous UBC med student? I mean, that was a good moment. Which maybe also swayed my whole vision of that WMS conference. And actually the other funny thing is my cars fall into neither of these categories. I have a Prius and a VW van with studded snow tires, of course.
Of course. Awesome. What about, are you a morning person or afternoon, evening person? Do you like sunrise or sunset?
I like the audience. I'm kind of split. I'm up at sunset. I'm always happy about it, but if you have to ask me to get up, I'd probably say sunset.
Fair. All right. Are you a salty or sweet person?
Salty. I'm a runner. Gotta have salt.
All right. Beverage of choice after a long day.
Look at that.
It's like even down the line. It's so great.
We got 40% for water. We didn't include still or sparkling. That was an option.
That was going to be the next one. Still or sparkling.
I have my Soda Stream. I'm obsessed with sparkling water, but I've been known to enjoy a wheat beer or a good Cabernet.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, I think now what I'd like to do is open it up to the membership that's on to ask some questions.
I have a question. I'm excited. This is kind of why I joined this Fireside group. I'm a nurse practitioner. I just graduated from grad school.
Oh, your sound just cut out, Jory.
Jory, your sound just cut out.
You can type it in if you want to send it through the chat.
Sorry, Jory.
And everyone, you're welcome to unmute yourself if you'd like to hop on and verbally ask a question, or like Jory's doing, feel free to use that chat feature and send it in.
And while Linda's answering, I can help answer stuff. Jory's asking, what about fellowships for nurse practitioners and not only doctors? I'm assuming wilderness fellowships. Yes.
Yeah. That's a great question. As far as I know, I mean, you can get a FOM. Anyone who's a member can get a FOM, and I encourage you to do so. But as far as academic fellowships, I don't know of any. So you should start a program at your institution.
Yeah, and I would echo. So you can always do the FOM through the WMS, and then even do the diploma in mountain medicine or the diploma in marine medicine to get kind of more specific training in those and become an expert in your field, in that field, and then you can use those expertise wherever you are. Where are you, Jory? Chicago. Awesome. Oh, Roanoke had an NP fellowship last year. That is awesome. Thank you, Mohammed. That's really good information.
Yeah.
And then Steph LaRue would probably know more about that if it's at Roanoke and Wilderness Fellowship related. So we can always get you in contact with her. She's been involved in all sorts of conference planning and committees, pretty active in education. So she would be, or actually even ask Mohammed. He put it up. Mohammed, do you have more information about that? I hadn't heard about it. Oh, Steph's fellow. There you go.
Yeah, and they
Very cool.
one of the top programs. So that would be a super experience.
That's good. Steph's awesome.
Yeah.
I echo that, Mohammed.
And it looks like Jamie sent in a question. As president, where do you think the WMS is in greatest need of volunteers?
That's a great question. I think there's several places we need people, and so I would kind of try to tailor that to your interests. If you're interested in research and writing, the journal always needs peer reviewers, and the peer reviewer pool eventually are the people who become the editorial board. So that is a pathway if you're interested in that. The magazine, I was just about to say, the magazine always needs writers. And I see that somebody, it looks like Jamie put that, yeah. And I'm sure Nancy would appreciate anybody's articles. So that is a great place to just, a great outlet. The other committees, I know that the Global Health Committee is working on a pre-conference, and so that is a lot of work, and they might want some folks. We're going to be putting out a call for all the committees that need new volunteers and need help after our October board meeting. Right now, I'm waiting for the committee chairs to get back to me with their specific goals for the year. And once we have that, we'll know exactly who needs people. But there is always space for people who have energy and time to contribute.
And I'll answer. So Robert asked about DIM courses online. So I don't know if you don't mind, I'll chime in about that because I'm part of the faculty for the DIM. So the DIM, we have not at this point had a 100% online course with that. Given COVID, we have moved the summer and winter curriculums to an online format or a virtual format because the conferences are because the conferences are online, we're making those portions online. Hopefully we will not all be on lockdown forever. So I think it would be really hard to do the rock skills and the alpine skills online because those are hands-on, on glacier, on rock type of skills. So there's definitely right now, Robert, there is online components to it because our conferences are online, and the DIM has 4 modules, 2 of which are conference based, and those 2 are kind of online at this point. But the other, I don't know how we would ever make those other 2 pieces of it all virtual, just because it's hand-on. So Linda, here's a question. You talked about wanting some more inclusivity at the WMS. What other visions do you have for the WMS, like longer term beyond your presidency in like the next 5 years?
Yeah, well, I hope that, first of all, I hope that it will be back in person, at least for some of our conferences. and that when you come to the conferences and you look at the podium, you'll see a broader picture of people that represents kind of the broader membership as a whole. And we're actually putting in some conference policies in place right now through the board to really make efforts to work hard at that. I want the Wilderness Medical Society to be like the place to get cutting edge wilderness medicine education and trainings, and I want us to be the first Google hit, so that people don't confuse us with our competitors. And I would love to see advances in some of the other parts of wilderness medicine besides high altitude. And I see there's a comment from Mohammed about a lot of emphasis on snow sports and more things related to the desert. And I think that that's a great need in terms of both research and also activity. But we have had desert conferences in the past, and one of our goals as an organization is to actually increase the number of regional conferences we have. Obviously, COVID sort of put that a little bit on the back burner, but I think the desert conference is part of that. And the idea is that the topics will be regional specific too. And that is a big thing on our radar. Tropical, yeah, Maui.
Maui. I don't think you have to convince most of us to come to Maui. I need an excuse. My husband's not really a beach person, so I did hear about some climbing in Hawaii. So if I can entice him to go because there's climbing, then that would happen. Let's see. All right, Gaia asked, I'm an international medical graduate. Can I get involved with research or undergo the FOM?
Yes to both. Any member can get a FOM. It's not exclusive. And getting involved with research actually probably has more to do with where you are at your current institution. But yeah, being an international medical graduate would certainly not exclude you from that in any way.
What about anyone else have some other questions? Either you can pop in, unmute yourself, pop in, or put in the chat. I'll go to gallery view so I can see people raise their hands. Anyone have any hand raises? Ken? You got to unmute yourself, Ken. Ken has a question.
Yeah, unmute.
There we go. Yeah, I remember how to do that. I may be that old, but I still can do Zoom. Yeah. What's the future of the WMS trips? I know we're probably not sending anybody to places like Nepal or South America anytime soon, but what do you see happening with those?
Well, we're working on some policies and procedures so that we can do US-based trips safely, and I don't think that will be impossible. It partly depends on testing availability, and so I'm hoping that's going to continue to rapidly evolve in the next 6 months, so that by even the spring we might be able to launch like our Canyon adventure. Obviously we can't go to Europe if no one's going to let North Americans in, or not North Americans, Americans, right? Canadians can go to Europe still, I think. And I know that Nepal open, but they're having a resurgence, so it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens with that, but I wouldn't feel comfortable sending anybody there right now. So obviously we don't want to, we're just hoping for a vaccine and better testing so we can keep doing what we like to do.
Thank you.
There's a couple other questions. Can you talk about the virtual conference coming up in the winter?
It's going to be awesome. It's in February, and the summer conference went way better than expected. And now that we know what we're doing, the winter conference is just going to be extraordinary. So please register and please come. We should be publishing the schedule and the lineup really soon if it's not already.
Kelly just put up a link to the conferences, the virtual winter conference. So that's in the chat. Everyone can take a look at that if you'd like to. Mary had a question about, are there any known SAR rehab programs?
Tell me what you mean by SAR rehab.
Mary, pop in.
Hi, I'm down in Texas, in New Braunfels between Austin and San Antonio, and I'm the field training officer for our search and rescue team. And we really work in a lot of pretty strenuous heat and humidity in the summertime. And I'm looking for another team or medical group that might have some type of rehab program that's developed that they might be interested in sharing.
Oh, like to either acclimatize to heat so you can perform better, or to recover when you've been out in the heat? Is that?
Yes, recover after you've been out in the heat.
You know what? That is an awesome idea. And I don't know of anything. There might be something out there, but I do know that there have been a couple grants that have come through in the last 2 years looking at heat stress in firefighters.
Hi, that's me, Rihanna. I'm that researcher.
Yay!
Contact me. I specialize in heat acclimation for prevention of heat illnesses, as well as return to play or return to activity following heat illnesses or heat stress in general.
So take it away, Rihanna. What do you have to tell Mary?
Yeah, I just got one of those grants through the WMS looking at a way that we could better treat people who have heat stroke in the field, because best practice is to cold water reverse them, but unless you happen to have a lake or river nearby, what are you really going to do? So we're in the middle of that trial, but in general, I work with athletes and occupational workers who are experiencing heat stress, and they're either trying to prevent it or perform better with heat stress if you can't really, get out of it. Or how could they modify their activity or clothing or hydration? I kind of do a little bit of everything in my lab. So I'd be happy to connect and be able to talk more.
Oh, that's great.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
I think it'd be awesome to hear what you're doing and have you talk about some of that too to the wider membership.
Yeah. I just joined WMS, so I'm hoping to come to the conferences soon.
Great.
Awesome.
I'm putting on my short list for speaking, Rihanna.
I know. I just pressed Kelly the same thing. So we might be tapping you, Rihanna.
Anytime.
Oh, thanks for coming.
All right. Kelly had a question. She said she's a second-year medical student, so she was wondering what opportunities you would recommend for medical students to get engaged during their undergraduate medical education, which is a great question.
Yeah, many medical schools have. I think we call them student interest groups, and those they're really grassroots. So if your medical school doesn't have one, then I encourage you to form one, because I think you'll find a lot of people are really interested in this. Some of them have done things like just go out and do fun stuff together in the wilderness. Other of them run, help get a faculty sponsor and do an elective. Where do you go to school?
I go to school at Florida International University in Miami.
Kelly, do you know if there's an existing?
No, we have an emergency medicine interest group, and I know students that are involved in the EMIG often have like passions towards wilderness medicine, but nothing exactly specific for wilderness medicine.
And I think it's important to have kind of a non-emergency based wilderness interest group, because I think emergency medicine seems to be very dominated in the WMS. I mean, Ken, myself, Linda, I'm just kind of looking around, and we're all EM based, and there's a lot of us. But I think it's really important to foster that wilderness expertise and interest in all fields of medicine. And I think that's one of the really cool things about the WMS is that it's like the one place where you can really kind of bring, you know, people from all specialties together, which is, and all areas of training, as Linda had said before, whether it's, you know, APRN, you know, PAs, nurses, medical students, first responders. It's sort of like the common ground to everything, which is really kind of cool. So,
yeah, I mean, we had a president who was a family medicine doc, Tony Eastlis, and yeah, so I encourage you to create your own thing. I mean, like one of my dear friends is a dermatologist, and you know, she's always joking about wilderness dermatology, but you know, as students who, you know, they may want to go into ENT, like what's the relevance, you know, there, but everyone loves to get outside, and kind of in the name of doing something practical and good, and we can all use our wilderness medicine skills in our personal life, even if that's not what we are practicing in our day-to-day practice.
Yeah, and I'll just add on the student interest groups that we have one that's actually starting a webinar series specifically for the student interest groups. We also offer conference scholarships. We provide free education resources to our student interest groups, and it's pretty easy to start one if your school doesn't have one. Looks like we have 3 others in Florida that we can connect you with the student leaders there. But I put the link to our students page and my email address in the chat if anyone is interested in getting more involved with students.
And then actually for Mohammed kind of asked a question right after that they have a local medical student, we have local medical student clubs. Is there a funding mechanism to get the medical students involved and maybe subsidize their AWLS so we can get more students into the WMS?
Yeah, so we do have, as Kelly mentioned, the fellowship, the scholarship program for the conferences. We've talked about other, we do run 2 student electives that are WMS based, and there's also some scholarships available for those. So those are kind of a great way to get some training and be with another group of students and meet people from all over the country. Steph LaRue runs one of them, and in Virginia, and the other one's in Breckenridge. They're probably both going to be virtual this year, but the virtual one was a big success in the spring. So check out our student electives too.
So Rihanna asked, does the WMS have a database or system for helping members identify fellowship or internship experiences related to wilderness medicine for students?
I don't know if we have anything beyond sort of a list of the student interest groups. And then we have, you know, our own 2 electives. I don't know if there's a central repository for all the electives that are run out of there's many student electives across the country out of different institutions.
And we do promote those pretty frequently. Whenever people share those with us, we'll share them on social media. So definitely recommend following us on social media. We'll send them out to the student interest groups. We do have the listing of the GME fellowships as well on the website. I can send that link out.
And Kelly, I forget, and this may be something that we need to work on. Do we have a way to connect members, like kind of individual like member profiles, and to show what people are interested in, if they're interested in research or partnering with other people to do research in certain areas of expertise? Do we have that kind of like chat function or search function?
Yeah, so on the members tab on the website, there is a link to the directory, and you can search by specialty and credentials in a variety of different ways. For research specifically, on the research tab, we have a relatively new member benefit that we call Ask the Expert, essentially where you can send a message directly to the research committee and get plugged in with someone personally. These new Fireside chats that we're starting as well are a really great resource. The one that they did last week was on finding a research mentor, and then we've got one coming up on preparing an abstract. So definitely check out the research tab on the website if you're interested in getting more involved with research.
Awesome, thank you. Do we have any other questions? And kind of want to sort of have a couple of final questions to ask Linda to wrap up our fireside chat. If we're all, I think people are kind of starting, we're at about an hour, so I think people are kind of wrapping up and need to get to their stuff. So so my final couple of questions for you, Linda, for the rest of the members. What is some advice you'd like to give our membership or give everyone who's here?
Yeah, so I would say, it doesn't matter what your specialty is or what your training is. You are welcome here, and that I hope you'll get involved in committees, which is sort of the pathway to going beyond just the educational experience that we offer, but really getting to participate in creating things like workshops, programs. In order to promote research, I think one of the ways we're going to grow is by people finding opportunities. People like Rihanna, who have been doing this for years now, bringing it to the WMS and becoming part of us, so that we have people kind of from previously non-linked domains and departments and institutions coming together in the name of wilderness medicine. So if you want to do research and you feel like there's no wilderness or altitude people at your institution, look around, because there's a lot of applications beyond kind of what's already been done so far. And please stay engaged, and if there's things that you think the WMS should be offering that we don't,
We want to know.
We want to hear it. We are a member-oriented, member-grown organization, and we are not here to sort of tell you what to do, or we are here to for you to help create the opportunities you want to see.
Awesome. And then what would be helpful to you from the WMS membership?
Yeah, so, stay involved, show up at our virtual events, and give us feedback. Let us know where we're doing well, where we can improve, and what other things we can provide to make this an organization that benefits you.
And so Linda's information, Kelly just put up Linda's information, please feel free to contact her. You can also get in touch with me if you would like to as well. I'll put mine up. And if anyone has any other parting thoughts, please chime in.
Yeah, and just want to remind everyone about the conference that was mentioned. We're doing a giveaway to one lucky registrant between now and Monday night is going to be selected to win a free conference registration for our summer event in Snowmass. So encourage you to register early. Again, as I mentioned, the next WMS research fireside chat is on November 10th, preparing a WMS abstract. We do have a community calendar available on the website as well under the conferences tab. So encourage you to check out that calendar to see other upcoming wilderness medicine events. Many of those events are put on by our affiliates. So just want to give them a shout out and thank all the affiliates of the WMS. And once again, there is Linda's contact information. Thank you so much for everybody that joined, as well as our wonderful moderator. And have a good day. Bye-bye.
And I just want to thank everyone for coming everywhere you came from.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, Linda.
Bye, Ken.